my airplane crash. I used to fly an airplane. I flew it for about 6 years, and what it was a powered parachute, which is something like an ultralight, but it is an airplane. It does fly. And the powered parachute I had was a two-seater. It had a motor on it with a propeller to make it fly. And what a powered parachute is, it's like a big go-kart, and it's two-seater. It's got a motor, it's got a propeller, and then you have a big parachute, and you lay the parachute down on the ground behind your machine. You check all the lines, you make sure everything's looking good. You put your passenger in, and I put my passenger in on this day, and then I got in the machine and I started the motor, and you sit there and let it run for a few minutes to warm the engine up. And then when you get ready, you give it a little bit of the throttle, and what it does is it blows your parachute right up over the top of you, and you take off down your runway. And I'm going down the runway, and everything is fine, and I look up at the parachute, and it looks absolutely beautiful. So then what I do is I give it full throttle, and I just take off into the sky. And this flying this powered parachute is one of the most funnest things I've ever done. And I was making a lot of money with it. I would take people up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would charge $150 for an hour's flight, and we'd go out in the woods, and I'd show them the herds and herds of deer, and they got their cameras and going crazy, taking pictures and having a wonderful time. And I did this for about 6 years and just had a blast doing it. Well, this particular day, I had the guy flying with me, and we went up, we flew around for about an hour, and we were coming back to our runway, and we were coming in for a landing. And I was only about 200 feet off the ground, and I flew into what I call a microburst downdraft. That is when the wind is blowing straight down at the ground at over 100 miles an hour. And as a matter of fact, many years ago, there was a big jetliner coming in to land in Dallas Airport. And they were coming in for a landing, and they hit one of these microburst downdrafts. The airport calls it a wind shear. They hit this wind shear, the plane went down, slammed into the ground, and killed almost everybody on board. The very next day, the FAA said this will never happen again. And what they did is they set it up with all the airports where they can see or know that these downdrafts are happening. And if there is a downdraft within 30 or 40 miles of an airplane, no airplane will come in for a landing and no airplane will take off. They have made this a law. So that's just the way it is. So what I did is I'm coming in for the landing, and I'm about 200 feet off the ground, and I hit this downdraft. And I just went straight to the ground and crashed and just, completely destroyed my powered parachute. And I had the guy that was with me. He didn't get hurt. He bruised his ankle or something. But I'm laying there all crashed up on the ground. I look down at my leg, and I got a broken leg, and it's a compound fracture. The bone was sticking out of my leg about 6 inches. And I'm going, oh, great. Well, there happened to be a lady. I kind of crashed in her backyard. And she's seen this. She's seen this happen. So she called 911, and, all of a sudden I heard an ambulance coming up the road. And they come up there, and they got me. And what happened is my leg was a compound fracture, and about an inch of the bone broke off. And the paramedics didn't see it, and they put me in the ambulance, and they take me to the hospital. And I go to the hospital, and the doctors, got looking at it and everything. And what he ended up doing, he ended up putting a piece of steel in my leg. And so I spent a few days in the hospital, and the next day, my boss, I had a job, and I was in North Carolina, and I had a job there, and my boss came into my hospital room, and he fired me. He says, I need help, and you're not going to be back at work for a long time, so I got to find someone else to take your job, and he fired me. And so there I was in North Carolina. I haven't got a job, and I've got an apartment, but I'm not going to be able to make the rent on it, so I got no place to live. Well, my sister ended up coming up there and getting me and taking me down to Florida to her house, and she was looking after me and helping me out. And I went to a doctor down there. The first doctor I went to, I went into him, and he takes x-rays of my leg, and he puts them up on the wall, and we're looking at them, and he goes, well, you're missing about an inch of leg, a bone here. And I said, well, I can see that. And he goes, well, you're a candidate for amputation. And I looked the man right in the eyes, and I said, that is not an option. No way are you going to cut my leg off. And he goes, well, there's nothing I can do for you then. I'm going to have to send you to a specialist. So he sends me to a specialist, and this guy was really good. And he puts the x-ray up on the wall, and we're looking at it, and he goes, well, you're missing about an inch of bone. I said, I can see that, doctor. He goes, well, I had extensive training in Philadelphia for cases just like this. I think I might be able to help you. So what he does, he puts me in surgery, knocks me out cold, and he goes into my hip, and he takes out some bone marrow, and he mixes it with bone graft, and packs it in my leg, and then he put a big piece of steel in there and screwed it all together. The guy did a wonderful job, and as a matter of fact, now I can go dancing, you know, so I'm all healed up. And that's just about the way it all happened. But the fact that I flew into that microburst downdraft was not pilot error, because it's not something you can see. It's just wind. You know, wind is invisible. And that's what happened to me.